Hey! So for the last week I've been getting up in the wee hours of the morning the last few weeks to watch the Toronto Maple Leafs play in the NHL playoffs.
Shoots and scores!
And despite the fact that they were actually knocked out earlier this week, my passion for them could not be more. This is the first time they've made the playoffs, the second time in 12 years. The team they have is phenomenal and I couldn't be more excited. Now, one question I get asked a lot, though, is why ice hockey and why the Leafs? And so I want to tell you a bit of a story now quickly to explain that. The first you need to understand is that my passion grew from a lady that was very close to me when I was growing up. She was my great aunt. Her name was Mary, and we called her Mamie, and she was like another gran for us. We were always there after school, and she would... when she was in her 20s, she moved over to Toronto from Scotland, and she used to tell us stories about going to the Maple Leaf Gardens and watching the Toronto Maple Leafs play, and she would tell me how amazing the Maple Leafs were and about ice hockey. And so as a small little kid, I grew up hearing these amazing stories, and it created a bit of a curiosity and a passion for me that has continued ever since. Now, I want to tell you a bit of a story that actually started at hockey. You see, my great aunt Mamie, she met a man at a game once. His name was Leslie John Moore, and they ended up going on some dates and they fell in love, and ultimately he took her out to the Great Lakes. Apparently there was this beautiful moment and he proposed to her. She said yes, and everything was fantastic. And so she got on a boat and she came back to Scotland because she wanted to tell her mum. You know, she was all excited and this was the deal, and she was going to get married to Leslie John Moore. And she had this little suitcase with her, and it was one of those old brown cases that had the letterpress letters on it, LJM, that gold leaf. And sure enough, she comes home and she tells her mum she's engaged, and her mum is over the moon. And then it comes up and the mum says, so is he Catholic? And she said, well, no, he's Christian, he's a Protestant. Well, now in those days in Scotland, and in fact even in some areas in Scotland still, this was just simply not on. The idea of a Protestant and a Catholic marrying just didn't make any sense. So my great-grandmother refused to let Mamie see or speak to Leslie John Moore ever again. And all his letters were returned to sender. There wasn't simply a case of sending, making phone calls or sending emails or things like that. It was a letter that was sent and was returned to him. And actually Mamie never spoke to him again. She went on to marry my Uncle Reggie just before the Second World War, and they got pregnant with twins, and she was an air raid warden, and in an air raid she actually lost her twins in the Second World War. So she went on to never have any kids of her own, which was obviously her loss, but to some degree my family, my mom and my sisters and I's gain, because she always treated us like her kids and her grandkids. And anyway, the story goes that we end up moving into South Africa before she was dying. My Uncle Reggie was a little bit of an alcoholic, and he died when I was maybe 3 years old, in about 77, and they never had any children. And when I was in my 20s, Mamie had moved out here, and she was very old, she was in her 80s, and I was on tour with a band called Roxette, and I had to take Mamie to a home, and this ended up being where she passed away a few days later. And so I remember the day that I went in, my family was down in Cape Town, and I went in to get her, and I walked into the room and she was sitting there, and she had this suitcase here, this brown suitcase with the LJM, and she was crying. Now Mamie was like rock solid, she was super, super strong, and I walked up to her and I said, Mamie, what's wrong? What's going on? And she was crying, and then I started crying, and I had my arms around her, and it was a very emotional experience. And I said to her, Mamie, what's going on here? And then she looked up at me and she said, I was just wondering what my life would have been like if I'd married Leslie John Moore. That was one of the most emotional, and it was like a watershed moment for me. Here's a lady who 60 years on was sitting there 3 days before she died, wondering what her life would have been like if she'd married somebody. A life that, no matter how full it was, always was plagued with regret. And I thought, this is the saddest story I've ever heard in my entire life. Can you imagine the idea of sitting there? Now, Leslie John Moore could have been an asshole. He could have been a horrible human being. But had she married him and tried that and it didn't work out and they got divorced or whatever, there never would have been a regret. It would have just been something that had happened. But instead, because she hadn't done it, she spent the rest of her life thinking, what if? And I vowed then that was how I was going to find, I don't particularly buy into any kind of higher purpose, but I do believe we have to create purpose for ourselves. And one of the things for me that I always try to do is chase my path of least potential for regret. So if there's something that I could think that if I don't do this, I will regret it later, then I would certainly try and pursue that. I never want to look at something, when I look at the business I have now, if I still have it in the same form 10 years from now, I'll absolutely regret it. It has to change. I would far rather try something new and fail at that than not try and then sit there and regret not giving it an effort. Because you can always kick yourself for taking a chance that didn't work out, but you can never go back on something that you didn't bother doing. My parents, when I was leaving school, they started a restaurant, and it was my dad's passion for as long as I can remember. And for whatever reason, financial, location, all these things, the restaurant never actually panned out the way they would have hoped. It was amazing, we had a huge loyal customer base, but Mulholland's, the restaurant, just never quite worked out. But it's amazing because when I hear my dad talk about it now, he never remembers it with anything but fondness. His memories of that restaurant are always something that is just so amazing. He remembers being a chef and his eyes glow and he's excited. And he doesn't remember the fact that it didn't work out the way he wanted to. But I guarantee you, if he was sitting here today and he hadn't done the restaurant, he would always be wondering, what if this was my chance? What if I could have been that great chef? And I think there's too many people sitting here, even those of you watching this video right now, that are sitting with the potential of regret. And I think you need to chase that. You need to chase the path of least potential for regret. You need to try and find out what is my possibility of regret here? What am I not trying? What am I putting off trying? And ask yourself if you have to cash that check sometime in the future, the check of not trying. And I think there is there. And I want to make some changes in my own life, about my own business and my own career around chasing this. And I want to challenge you to do the same thing. I want you to make a list of things. What could I possibly regret not doing right now? And it could be anything. Not asking that person to marry me, not moving on from a relationship that isn't working, not quitting my job and starting my own business, or not moving company, not trying to get that promotion. There must be a whole bunch of questions that we're not asking because we're scared that it may not work out the way that we want it to. But if it doesn't work out the way you want it to, then it's a lesson. But if it does work out the way you want it to, then it's amazing. If you don't try, it will only ever be regret and what if. So I want you to remember Mamie and Leslie John Moore. I want you to remember the story of a lady that was sitting 60 years on and still regretting a decision she didn't make when she was in her 20s. And I want you to make sure that that never happens to you ever in your life. So I hope this was a valuable story. It was a very emotional one for me to share. But in an emotional week, like my Leafs, which seem to have paused playing because our internet is shit, it was something that I thought I would like to share with you. And otherwise, we'll start watching hockey because it's amazing. You'll regret it if you don't do that. Peace.